Hello, everyone. I am here with Dr. Tina Welsome, and she is going to give us such an interesting insight on a different aspect of writing, not just what it can do for our business, but what it can do for our souls, really. So,
Definitely.
welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I would love for you to tell us more about how you got started in this kind of field. Like, how did you discover that writing could be so healing?
Well, I think I discovered the power of words first as Julia Cameron calls it, a shadow artist, because I was always an avid reader. So I think, whether it was educational content as I got my multiple degrees, or just fiction writing to, escape, or reading to, escape to self-development, psychology, all of that stuff. I think, it was just always something for me that the words drew me. And I think in terms of expressing myself, um, I struggle, as I'm struggling with words right now, I struggle to find the exact right words that I want to say. And I am a college professor. I teach physical therapy. And so I don't have a problem when I'm speaking with a student one-on-one, or a patient one-on-one, or a wellness coaching client one-on-one. But certainly when I get out of a large audience, I get the deer in the headlights feeling. And I think what I struggle with, it's like, I know I have something I want to share, but I prefer to be behind the scenes and to actually be able to get my thoughts down and then reflect on them, mull them over, rearrange them, craft them, and then they seem to be the way I want them to be, which is probably a little bit of my perfectionist tendencies showing up.
I can
Um,
relate to that as a writer. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like
right. I
you
mean,
you
there's
express
the
yourself
right
that way.
word. Yeah, there's always like the right worst way, the better way. And I highly recommend, once your book is published, don't go back and look at it, because you'll want to redo it, for the umpteenth time. But then I guess, after my marriage ended, I started journaling, just for my own, mental health, well-being, to gain clarity, to reflect back on 20 something years of marriage and family and motherhood, and almost 50 years of life, to kind of try to figure out who I was and how did I get to this point and where did I go wrong. And maybe I didn't go wrong. Maybe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And, where am I going? But, kind of making meaning from the grief and the situation. And one of my therapists said to me, he would give me material to read, whether it was to watch a video, to read, or to read a book. And I would come back having done that times 10 on steroids, because I am just very curious. And he just kept complimenting me on the way that I would pull different things together to kind of make them make sense. And I recognize that that is really what I love to do most in the world, and what I love most about teaching, what I love most about being a mom, what I love most about working with my clients. And so he was the one that recommended that I take my scribblings and, put them into a place that made sense to show people how to get through this healing process and to get through to the other side from somebody who'd actually gone through it, not just somebody who had a degree in it. So that was really how my writing journey started. And then as I edited and re-edited and, learned all the processes of, traditional versus hybrid versus self-publishing, and did I want to write a blog? Did I want to write a book? Did I want to write magazine articles? Yes, 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 all of the above. I just like to write. I decided that, I had this solo book. I have multiple solo books in the works, but I had this one that was, calling me to finish writing it. And that was working through the whole divorce process, the transition process with my family, and started my own business, which was, at the end of all of that, I ended up starting a publishing house, after I had gone the traditional route and was just not enjoying it at all. It didn't feel true to my journey, which was to be mentally and physically healthy, to be my authentic self, to find joy in every day. to celebrate the abundance and, be grateful for everything I had in my life, and to ultimately be love or be loved, which is Loved is the title of my solo book. So, went on a journey to understand the self-publishing process and wrote a chapter in a multi-author book, which created and participated in some writing masterminds and writing groups, which really just kind of opened my eyes to the other opportunities that writers have, to be in a more supportive environment that feels less maybe self-abandoning, less self-rejecting. And since so many of us have rejection and abandonment wounds, maybe this book writing process can be more pleasurable, more joyful, more healthy.
Oh man, you're reminding me of my workshop days in college. Oh, brutal.
Yeah. So yeah, less brutal, less harsh, let's, here, love me, love my book. Oh, rejection number 103, And so I think, for me, it was just, what did I want that process to feel like, in growing and expanding myself as a human being, as a writer, as an author, as a publisher now, versus did I want to say, here's me, and hand it over to a traditional publishing house and have it crafted, molded into what they thought it needed to look like. It didn't feel authentic to me. It didn't feel like the culmination of what my book journey was about. So when a dear friend held the mirror up to me and said, you've talked about, creating these own metrics for our success and, being the light that you want to be in the world, do you really want to take 2 or 3 more years to be traditionally published? Or do you want to get this out there and have it help as many people as you can? And when I really thought about what my own personal desire and intention for my book was, that was really more the path that spoke to me. So that was the way I went about it. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think every writer has to kind of answer that for themselves and figure out, what's the right path for them.
Definitely. There's a lot of options these days. Things have changed. 20 years ago, I was coming out with my first book, and I was sending out all of those query letters to all the publishers, and the publishers were coming back with like, we don't know what to do with this. This is very weird. It's kind of niche. Like, we don't know how to market this. And so I felt pretty devastated at that time, because you want that validation of a traditional publisher said this was good enough to be published. And if you self-publish, you feel like you're not going to get that. But let me tell you, you do. And I think Dr. Tina will back me up on this, that you get a lot of validation from your readers.
Yes.
From the people who reach out and say, your book helped me, your book changed my life. Like, that's where the real validation comes from.
I agree so much. And I know I often usually the first call I get on the phone with an author is that, like, traditional versus solo or hybrid, or, wherever you want to be on that continuum. And it's, I ask them, how does this process feel like for you? What is your dream, or what is that validation? And, a lot of people do think traditional is the only way to go, but, really, how often do you actually pick up a book and look at who the publisher is? You only look at it when you're citing it. And I know, because I'm in academia, so I know all the main publishers, I know all the science publishers, and I know where they're located, because, you got to cite their name, their location, and the date of publishing. But other than that, nobody really pays attention to that. And so I think you're right. I think for me, it was like, as long as this book, my goal for writing it was, if I could impact one person's life, just one, that was going to be enough for me. And I know that my parents asked me along the way, well, what if this doesn't make you famous, or what if this doesn't make you millions? And I was like, that isn't really my goal, not at all. Actually, I'd rather hide behind other authors and help get their work out, now that I've realized that. But no, I think, so when I had my first editor, and she called me in tears, and she was like, you wrote your intention for this book, and she was like, and you've actually changed my life. And she's like, so anything beyond this is gravy. And I just remember crying and being like, okay, like, it made sense to one person. And, you know, and now it's made sense to more than that. And it, you know, every person that comes back and says, you know, there was one line or there was one thing, or it just made me pause and reflect, or I don't see it your way, but you gave me permission to see it my way. Awesome. Awesome. Like, that's the best gift that you can get, I think, as an author, is for somebody to enjoy or appreciate or have been changed by your work.
Definitely. I totally agree. Yeah. So you started actually publishing. So you were, I kind of love how you were like this holistic approach that you have, where you're a physical therapist and you're teaching physical therapy. So it's very in the body, but then you're also writing and publishing books that are about the soul and kind of blending those together. I think that's just really awesome.
Yeah, I think, you know, yeah, I'm still a doctor of physical therapy. I still am a professor in a doctor of PT program, and I love working with my students. And I really think for me, you know, I can change one person's body with my hands and my interactions, or I can influence, you know, 50 students in a year to go out and treat people differently. And I think even more than that, over the last 5 or 10 years is, you know, I think that we do live in this human body, but we have a mind, we have a soul, we have a heart, we have, you know, our passions, we have our relationships, how we interact with the world, how we interact with our jobs. And I think it's not really just about your back pain or your neck pain or your sprained ankle. It can also be the trauma or the impact that has on your role as a mother, or your ability to go to work, or, you know, whether or not your passion is like really fulfilling your soul mission, you know, while you're alive on this planet. And so I think that, you know, that has definitely infused my work as a therapist and as a holistic wellness coach, is that it's not just about our body. And so then I think about, you know, with writing or speaking or, you know, coaching or treatment, whatever, you know, whatever aspect it is, you know, really getting into who that person really is, all the contextual factors that make them whole and complete and healthy. And so that kind of love went into my, you know, the key to wellness. Those are my keys to wellness. And then that's really how I look at, you know, any problem that I solve in my life. You know, how do I want to be as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as, you know, a business owner, as a friend, as a coach, as a therapist, as a professor. You know, it's really all of these things. It's not just the physicality of me. It's, you know, what's in my heart, what's in my spirit, what's in my mind, and how do I connect with people on those different levels at different readiness states? Because some people are like, not into that spiritual woo-woo stuff. And some people are like, if you're not going to go spiritual and deep with me, don't talk to me. And I get that, because that's kind of how I am at this point. But, you know, but I really love watching people take that journey of, I don't even know who I am. I don't know my authentic self. I know I'm not happy the way that I am, you know, meeting these outside, you know, requirements, or I don't know who I'm meant to be, or I don't know who I want to be, but I love supporting them as they figure that out. And I think, you know, just journaling and writing and reading and exploring all of that is really the way, a very good way for people to get to know themselves, to heal themselves, to be able to be honest with what they think and feel, and need and desire, and put that on paper. It has a greater impact, I think, than just a thought flitting through your head, you know, because you really have to take the time to get it out through your body kinesthetically, whether you're typing or you're writing or you're speaking in dictation. And then when you take that moment to actually pause and read back or listen back to your words, that's, I think, where we get that time for reflection. And in our busy world, we don't often get that. And so many people, you know, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard, I don't feel understood. But how many of us are taking the time to see and hear and understand ourselves? And, you know, if we can do that for ourselves first, we certainly can show up as better parents, friends, lovers, you know, colleagues, writers, whatever it is, you know, it just can make more sense.
Yeah. So you discovered, as you were writing your book and getting it out there, that you preferred to have the, I'll say, control over the publishing process, because you could make it more aligned to you. So how did you go from that to now you're publishing other people as well?
So it's interesting that that word control. I feel like so much of my healing work has been giving up control and surrendering to what is, and kind of having to recognize that I have this spirit of needing to do. I need to fix, I need to do. I'm a human doing, not a human being, and I don't want to be doing anymore. I want to be a human being. I want to be, fully present in the moments of my life, and not be so stuck with busyness that, or so stuck on getting somewhere, that I'm not present where I am. So I never really thought about, and you're right, because I think a lot of times we hear that term, like when you go traditional, you give up control over your book, creative control. And, maybe with solo or hybrid publishing, you maintain more control. And I guess for
Such a
me,
negative word. Like,
they do. And, and I think that's one of the things I love about words is like, is there a better word? You can say your child is stubborn and that sounds awful, or you can say your child is so tenacious and you're like, wow, that's such a better word. So I do think it's really good for us to get clear on our words. And a lot of times that's often where I start my writing process, is I go look up the definition, the origin, the different meanings, the synonyms, the antonyms, to get clear on like, what is that topic or that word or that thing I'm trying to grasp and understand. But I think with, I guess I'm gonna let go of the control word, because I'm really working on letting go and surrendering control. But I think what it is for me is more, is really with traditional, I feel like it's a destination. And I think that with hybrid and solo, it's more of a journey. And I think that, when it's a destination of, I'm going to write this book, I'm going to find a literary agent, I'm going to have it edited, because it's, God forbid, you not send your best work when you're sending out those query letters and the book proposal. And, when I get my book proposal, I'm going to have made it. I'm going to feel validated. And then you realize they don't like your concept for the cover, or they want to change your words, or you don't really own it anymore, so they can spin it the way they want. And maybe that's
yeah,
not
they
the
have a vision for it that might not be what your vision for it
right.
was.
Right. And then, marketing, I think a lot of people feel traditional, they're going to market me. If you're Brene Brown, sure they are. But, when Brene Brown first published her first book, she actually self-published, and she had to create her author platform and get known on her own recognition before they started giving her the big book deals. Right. And I think
Yeah,
people think,
that's a very common misunderstanding. Traditional publishers are
right.
not going to be marketing for you. That's still your job.
Yeah, you're still going to have to market and speak and promote yourself and get your message out there and let people know who you are. And then, so I'm going to get this validation of the book deal, and I'm going to get this, my check, my royalty checks. Well, you're going to have to sell at least 5,000 copies of a book where you profit about $1 before you're going to start really making any profit off that book. And somewhere along the way, your agent got a cut, you paid to get edited, and you invested a lot of time and money and energy into that. So, sometimes I think we think it's a stamp of approval and it comes with a big paycheck. And I think on the flip side, and then it's like, check, I did it, I'm done, I'm
Right.
an author, right? And I think on the self-publishing, hybrid publishing journey, I think it's more of, how do I want this experience to unfold? And, people say, well, it costs so much. Well, what is cost? There's, the financial cost of things. There's also the time and the energy expenditure. So I look at self-publishing or hybrid publishing as, you're investing in yourself. You're investing in your future, in your words, in your brand, and you're getting the opportunity to be supported by the editor that supports you, that you feel good with, not just the one that got handed to you. Or you get to enjoy the cover art design process with, what does it look like to me? What's it going to feel like in my hands? And I think all of that is part of the whole book vision. It's not just that I want to be a published author. It's, I have a message I want to share. And it's more surrounding yourself on this journey towards publication with people who support you, that celebrate you, share your vision, that want to bring it to light in the best way. And so, yeah, there is there is an investment of yourself either way you go. It's just, how do you want to spend the time from, time zero of I'm going to write a book to I'm a best-selling author and here's my book and it's helping people. What do you want that time spent? It's going to be probably a year, maybe 5 years, right? To, beginning to end of that process. How do you want that time to feel? Do you want to feel supported and, cheered on and encouraged and, creative and fulfilled? Or do you want to feel, scared, nervous, rejected multiple times probably before you get that book deal, and then be told your words aren't good enough, they don't like your cover art, they want you to look this way, whereas you want to look this way. It's interesting. Speaking of looking, on my back cover, I remember when my friend took my photos, and she loved this photo and I loved this photo, and everybody's like, "You're so insecure, and we don't think it's a good, we don't think it's a good look for you." And I was like, but this is the woman that wrote this book. She's the one that wanted to be loved, who wanted to figure out who she was authentically, who wanted to live her life. And, I look back at it and it's like, that was me. I was to myself. I was closed down. I wanted, but I wasn't there yet. And now, to me, it was like it honored where I was in that journey. Whereas there were other photos she took that day because my friend's a photographer and she used them in a show. But I look at them and everybody's like, why didn't you put that on your cover? I'm like, because that's not me. Like, it is me, but it's me with a lot of makeup, and it's me that's not natural. It's not.
Yeah.
I did the mask and learn who I was and learn to love who I authentically was. I don't want a photo that doesn't make me feel like me. So, things like that might come out in the process. And so I guess for me, when I hear that somebody has a book that they want to write, or they have a book that they have written, like, I feel, birthing a book is like giving birth to a child. Nobody wants to hear that their child is ugly, or that they have jaundice, or, that they're always spitting up, but they are. That, like, that's God's honest truth. Like, babies can be, a mess when they're little. But I think you want somebody to take that baby and love it just as much as you do, and nurture it and bring it out to the world and show it in its, its real, authentic, beautiful vision that you have. And so that's, for me, that's the publishing journey, is, meeting these authors, where they are, and shepherding them through to where they want to be, so that their stories can have the greatest impact for them, realizing their dream and healing whatever wounds it took them to maybe get to this point, but then for those words to get out to the right people, and, hopefully the masses, and, and really change the world with their words.
Yes. Yeah, I think the hybrid and smaller independent publishers have the kind of luxury to be able to, like, really honor the story of that book.
Yeah.
It's easy as creative types, as artists, to forget that big traditional publishers are a business. They got to make money. They've got people to pay. So they're always looking at who is going to want to buy this book. How are we going to position it? What's the best angle to use to sell it? And those are good things to be cognizant of. But at the end of the day, they are going to make the choices that they think are going to make the most money, regardless of what you want for your book, baby.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. They're going to dress your baby in clothes that you're like, that is not what my child wears. I don't want fancy schmancy, uncomfortable clothes on my child. I want my child to be, comfy and cozy and, supported.
Yeah. So I think I really want to encourage people to do a lot of research about the options when it comes to publishing, because, like I said earlier, it has changed a lot. Yeah. And traditional might be the right way for you, but it's important that you know things like, if you get an advance, that's against your royalties. You're not going to make royalties until you've paid back that advance. Like, little details like that are really important to know before you make this decision.
And I think the thing to recognize for any author is that there isn't a right decision for everyone. There's the right decision for you. And it's, how do you envision this book being in existence? Do you want it? How do you want that journey to go? And what do you want the final destination to look like? Where are you headed? What's your own North Star? And then look around for what fits you. I mean, there are certainly, independent publishing houses where it's, check all the box and we'll assign you a person. There are small independent houses where I am your person and my team is going to help support me, support you, but you're working with me. And so I think it's very important for authors to do that reconnaissance and take the time to make those phone calls and connections and see what fits for them, what makes them feel good, because it really is a huge undertaking to write a book, and it's a huge accomplishment to get published, and you should be cited all the way through. And I think we fail to do that. I think we've gotten a lot better as a society of recognizing things to be grateful for, and writing our gratitudes and thinking about our gratitude every day. But I think we also need to pause and celebrate that you're making this choice to follow a dream. Celebrate that you sat down and wrote today. Celebrate that you got your rough draft, your shitty first rough draft out there and somebody's looking at it. That you're willing and open to work with and collaborate and take feedback and take what resonates with you and don't take what doesn't serve, and create that book that becomes the best version of yourself, because we're all always growing and expanding and learning. And I think it's just important for each author to find what's the best fit for them, that's going to heal them and help them and have it be a joyful process for them.
It really makes me think of dating, actually.
It kind of is like dating.
I kind of feel like as a young person, my experience of dating was like, oh, please let them like me. Please let them love me. Like, I need to make myself beautiful in the way that they want, instead of thinking about what do I want? What do I want in a partner?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that, where you're looking at these traditional publishers and like, oh my goodness, I want them to like me. Please like me. Instead of taking the time to think about, is that the right partner for me?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think the first, sorry, my little friend here is wanting some attention. This is my, they talk about your dog ate your homework. My dog is always eating books. So he's a voracious reader, this little cutie. But I think, one of my first coaches that I ever met, we talked about her coaching business, and she did, life coaching and dating coaching. And I really wanted to learn how she started her business. That was kind of what, I was just curious. I'd, heard her talk about her life story, and I was kind of like, how'd you do this business thing? I want to know about that. She was like, well, you're single. Don't you want to know about dating? And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, you're healing from your divorce. Don't you want to do life coaching? I'm like, well, yeah, but really aren't all of them the same process? Like, I'm me. And so how I show up in all of my realms is going to help me, any growth or expansion or learning in any of those areas or transformation, they're going to impact the others. And so I think you're right. I think that's that concept of authenticity. I think so many of us, again, whether it's in our marriage, whether it's with our children, whether it's in our business or our career, or if we're out dating, we look at, am I what other people want, right? Do they want my book? Do they want my advice? Do they want my hands-on treatment? Do they want me to be their mother? Whatever it is, right? Do they want to date me? And I think the thing is when each one of us can come home to ourselves and know who we are authentically, and celebrate ourselves and feel enough within ourselves, then we don't feel so rejected by our children, by the publishing house when we get the rejection to the query letter, by the person that we're not dating. And I think when we know who we are and we know where we want to be, we're not going to go on that date with that person and try to be pretty enough or wear the right thing or say the right thing. We're just going to show up as ourselves. And with our writing, we're going to show up as our authentic voice. And I think the world needs more authentic voices. They don't need to hear the same platitudes, spit out 5 different ways. They need to hear from human beings, because I think it is that that shared storytelling that is what connects people and what makes people, your words resonate with people and makes them realize, oh, it's not just me who feels that way. I'm not crazy, or there is
Yeah.
a way out of this. And oh, look, this person's done it. And, there are, I don't know what, 7 billion people on this planet. We aren't going to connect with everyone. We're not everyone's cup of tea. But I think the point is to connect with the people who are meant to hear our stories, who are meant to be changed by what we have to say. And certainly you don't want your story being, edited and morphed so that it loses its message, so that it loses its authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity is a huge trend. As a marketer, I would say that's been an enormous shift over the last several years, that people are not looking for polished and professional and perfect. They really resonate with seeing the human side.
Yeah.
And the more raw and real you can be, the more it draws people to you. They recognize that humanity.
Yeah. And I think so many authors are afraid to, be that open and be that vulnerable, but it's through being that open and vulnerable. It is scary. It's very scary. But I think, it's through being that open and vulnerable that you are able to connect with people, and that's really what I think humanity needs. We've got so much separation and division and isolation. Anything that we can do to find a way back to each other, back to community, back to collaboration, back to unification, I think is really important.
Yeah. And I will say again, from my own experience, that, I got rejected from all these publishers. It was very discouraging. I finally self-published, and the feedback that I started getting were things like, somebody told me they brought my book to their therapist to say, this is what I've been trying to say.
Yeah.
You put into words what I couldn't say. And it felt like reading my own journal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the power of that is indescribable.
Right.
Because I really bared my soul. I let myself be super vulnerable, and people recognized themselves in it.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point that you just made about marketing. When we talked about how traditional or, independent, there's going to be marketing efforts that need to be made on your behalf. And you are most likely going to be your best marketer. So getting on social media, reaching out to mental health providers, if that is a place where your book belongs, or, whoever your audience, wherever they live, you want to get into those communities, because word of mouth is actually the best marketing for any book. It's, what somebody writes in a review, or somebody handing somebody your book and saying, hey, I think you really would appreciate this, or I think this would be really good for you. Yes, we do go to Costco and we see what's on sale, or, we're at Barnes and Noble and we grab a book for a gift. And you certainly can get into those places from an independent publishing standpoint. But I think, again, do I just want my book given and sitting on somebody's bedside table, or do I want people actually reading my book and being changed for the better, by it? That's, again, my personal feeling of what I want out of my book.
Yeah. So how do people get started working with you?
So you can, probably the easiest place to find, well, I have a website. It's www.thekeytowellness.net or www.thekeypublishinghouse.com, and you can see the multi-author books that we are looking for authors to collaborate with us on. If you have an idea for a collaborative book on a certain topic or with a certain group, we certainly would love to help support you get that going. For solo authors, on Instagram, probably the easiest way to get an appointment is on Instagram. I'm the key to wellness .tina. And if you go to my link tree, you can sign up for an answer the call session. It's a one-on-one session where we can talk about, what your dream is, or where you're at in that dream, or, what are your next steps? What are your options? And then from there, I do a 3-hour Explore Your Story workshop you could join me on. I do have an 8-week writer's workshop if you need some accountability and co-writing and coaching along the way. I also do book coaching and development, and then certainly offer all publishing services. So usually that the answer the call session is kind of where we go through all of those options and decide, what is it that you're really looking for? What is it that you really need? So I can steer you the right way, and or steer you to somebody else who might be a better fit for what your dreams are if I'm not it. Because for me, I kind of felt this way in my career as a PT. If I'm not the PT for you, or PT isn't for you, something else is. And I feel the same way with publishing. My dream is for your dream to come true. And if I can help that happen, through my services, wonderful. And if not, I probably know somebody I can send you on to. I just want to see it happen. I don't want to see that dream live on the shelf.
I totally agree. I feel the same way. It's really about hearing what people are trying to accomplish and then going, okay, which system is best for them? Which person is best for them? Yeah, I love that. So I hope that lots of people will take you up on that, because that sounds fantastic. Very helpful, because it can be a really confusing world.
It really is. And I think, that's been, for the 5 years that I've spent, researching and experiencing and exploring all of these things. I don't want somebody to waste, not that it was a waste for me. It was an investment and I'm glad I did it, but I don't want, and for me, it led to my passion. But for somebody else who just is ready to get that book out there, I'd rather let all of that time and energy and learning that I have, be put to use for you. So you don't have to spend 5 years learning it all yourself. So.
All right. Awesome. So do you have any parting thoughts that you would like to leave us with?
No, I think just, definitely follow your heart and be authentic and true to yourself. And don't, if the universe put a desire in your heart to share a story, write a book, get published, heed that. Don't set it aside. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't say someday. Make it happen now. Like, live the life that you're meant to live, and create that joy that you want to have. Just don't wait. So reach out if I can help you in any way, and just know I'm on your side.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you spending this day after Christmas with me.
Hey, it's better than being at the mall, right?
For sure. All right, then we will say goodbye.
All right. Thank you.